Go big or go home.
Well, hello. A little regroup session for everyone. 6 to 7 games into Big Ten conference play, and it seems like the right time to drop another go big or
go home.
I was late. I was late to the
Robbie.
party. I'm sleeping here. I'm sorry. Can we do it again? Let's do it again. Do it again.
6 or 7 games into big conference play, and it seems like the right time to drop another go big
or go
home.
There we are in NBC Sports podcast, diving into all the latest Big Ten hoops news and notes. I'm Zora Stephenson, play-by-play broadcaster, has been Hooper. Joining us today, Meghan McKeown, former Northwestern women's basketball player. She now calls games as an analyst. Robbie Hummel went to Purdue, one of the all-time greats as a Boilermaker. We're going to start with the State of the Union. Robbie, men's side will go first. Wisconsin #1 in the Big Ten. A half a game behind them is Purdue, who just came off a big win at Indiana. You were on the call for that. In what ways did Purdue execute the game plan properly?
Well, certainly Indiana's foul trouble really played a big part in that game. And I thought that they were just, very handsy, grabby, and the refs called it tight. And Purdue lived at the foul line, and Mackenzie Mbako and Khalil Ware getting those 2 fouls in the first half really, really impacted the way the game was going. But I did think that Purdue did a really nice job of kind of playing to their game plan of letting certain guys shoot. They were going to go under Trey Galloway and make him prove that he could make some shots from 3, which in the second half he did. He really rose to the occasion and tried to bring them back. But they were going to let Gabe Cupp shoot. They were going to let Anthony Walker shoot. They were going to show multiple bodies and trap Malik Reneau, who I think is one of the most improved players in the Big Ten Conference. But once Mbako and Ware were out in foul trouble, they really had their way. And Zach Edey he dominated the game with his size, his physicality, and the way that he just got to the foul line.
Yeah, I was watching some of the highlights from that game. Noah Eagle was on the call, and he goes, so-and-so tried to climb Mount Edey, and it didn't work out too well. Do people, what's the best way when you're on offense and Edey is go around him? Because you're not going to go over him. Right?
Yeah, you've got to use your quickness and your agility because he's really improved at that. I think when he first got to Purdue, now you're talking about a kid that was ranked in the 400s in his class, which is pretty amazing considering he's about to be the back-to-back National Player of the Year, and the only people that have done that are Ralph Sampson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton. You're talking about the elite bigs that we've ever seen in the men's game in college basketball. So I think, you're trying to go around him. You're trying to certainly get him off balance, but he's really come a long way in terms of his rim protection. And I think that that's what's going to give him a chance to, I'm not saying it's a lock that he'll make it in the NBA, but I think that with the way he's improved, whether that's guarding in space or protecting the rim, he will get a look at the next level.
I think defense is going to come up for some of the best players in the country, right? Zach Edey, and what he can do on that end. And so many people talk about his offense, but what he can do defensively. And then Meghan, I'm sure I'm going to get into Caitlin Clark and how she's sneaky good defensively. To wrap things up on the men's side, Robbie, what is Assembly Hall like? I've never been there. I'm going to go there.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's a pretty special building, and I think that in the state of Indiana, we're very fortunate. And I say weird because I was born in Valparaiso. Very fortunate to have Mackey Arena and Assembly Hall, which I would say are 2 of the best venues in all of college basketball. I'd put Allen Fieldhouse in there. I think Cameron Indoor probably has to be in that discussion. There's a couple others, but I would feel extremely confident in saying that Mackey and Assembly Hall are 2 of the elite places to watch a college basketball game. I think back to when I was playing, and you'd come out of that tunnel, and you're 2 hours before the game starts, and it's packed. And you're getting yelled at, and you're getting heckled. And Purdue, they return the favor when Indiana comes to West Lafayette. But the noise of that place, I will never forget. We played there my junior year, and we were a top 5 team, and Indiana was transitioning into the start of the Tom Crean era. So they had a freshman Jordan Holes, they had a freshman Christian Watford, good players, but really young. And I will never forget Jordy Holes made a 3 to take the lead by 1. And it was with like 5 minutes to go, and we took a timeout. And I remember thinking, it is so loud in here that I can hardly even form a thought. It is overwhelmingly loud. For big games, it is an incredible place to see a game. And we were fortunate to then go on like an 8-2 run to win the game. But it is one of the really, really cool places to play and watch a college basketball game.
Sounds amazing. And I have been to Mackey, and it's nuts in there, especially when it gets packed.
Yeah.
I will tell you a tidbit. Iowa on the women's side during their shoot around actually had time to talk about the band and say, hey, don't let them throw you off. We're going to try to count down and say there's like 3 seconds left on the shot clock when you have 10. And it was fascinating to me that was part of the pregame prep. Like, don't let the Purdue band get you out of your rhythm. I think that's the perfect segue now, Meghan, to bring you into this conversation. We start with Iowa, right? Number 1 in the Big Ten, number 2 in the entire country right now. Caitlin Clark continues to lead in points, assists, 3-point make. What right now is at the top of your mind when it comes to the Hawkeyes and Caitlin Clark specifically?
Iowa looks like a Final Four team right now. And I'm surprised that they've come together as quickly as they have. Yes, you return Caitlin Clark, the National Player of the Year, who does so many different things, not only from a scoring perspective, but also from an assist perspective, from a rebounding perspective, from a pace of play perspective. But now you have Molly Davis stepping up and knocking down shots. You have Gabby Marshall, who's starting to get her shot back from 3. Kate Martin's been consistent from day one. She's able to score in double figures. And Hannah Stolke, who's incredibly difficult to guard because at her size, 6'2", when she gets into her 2-man game action with Caitlin Clark, her first 2 steps off the screen are so quick. It's difficult as a bigger player to try to stay in front of her. She's getting wide open layups. Iowa's been able to find balance over the course of the last couple of games, and they look like a Final Four team. I don't know anybody in the league that can stop them right now.
Ohio State is going to try on Sunday on Peacock and NBC, 2 ranked opponents going at it. Ohio State only has 1 loss in the Big Ten. What do they need to do to have a chance against the Hawkeyes?
Ohio State has to try and turn Iowa over. Now, Caitlin Clark has been turnover prone throughout this season. Ohio State, one of the best teams when it comes to turning people over, nearly 22 times a game because of the way that they press and execute in the half court. If they can force Iowa to play fast and out of control, that's going to be key. The Hawkeyes love to play fast. They score 92 points a game. They get up and down. But if you can force them to be a little helter-skelter with things, especially with the timing of traps and the help side defense coming over in the press, that would be huge for the Buckeyes.
Okay, so we're fully underway. I feel like our first couple episodes were so much of preview. We think this is going to happen, and now we've got some things to go off of. So let's give out some individual accolades. Our thoughts right now of who is impressing folks. I'll start here. I think I should have an apartment. I'm saying this to NBC publicly. I think I should have an apartment in Iowa City. So of course I'm going to have a Hawkeye on this list. And I want to start with Molly Davis. Meghan, you brought her up. Her ability right now to be aggressive. They just want her to shoot the basketball when she's open. Against Indiana last weekend, she had 18 points, a couple of threes, and Caitlin Clark really was slow to go to start this game, and Molly Davis really stepped up, and so she's got the ability. You've seen her score from the outside, and then to go through contact. This was an on a break to go through contact and still finish to create her own shot. I've just been really impressed with Molly Davis. I don't know if it's her work in the gym or that daggone headband that she won't get rid of, but she's really been great. The second player just called the Iowa-Wisconsin game, and yes, it was a blowout. 46-point win for Iowa, but Sarah Williams and her improvement from the first time that they played Iowa to the second time. They played Iowa in December. Sarah Williams was in foul trouble, but this time I just felt like she handled some of the pressure of that Iowa defense differently. She was constantly doubled. You see the block there. She leads the Big Ten in blocks. Just her ability to time up her presence down low. She finished with her 4th double-double of the season, 19 points, 14 rebounds. So those are the 2 players that are top of mind for me right now. There's so much talent in the Big Ten. Robbie, who's standing out to you on the men's side?
Well, I guess I have to go with the reigning National Player of the Year. You know, back-to-back 30-point games, had 30 and 20 against Penn State, 20 rebounds. Actually, it's funny because Matt Painter, when I played, had a rule that if you got 20 rebounds, you could then wear a headband. And that's the only way that you were allowed to wear a headband. So Edey, I guess if he wants to, can now rock one if that's still a thing in West Lafayette. And then he followed that right back up in Bloomington with the 33 and 14 game. So you just look at his size, his skill, the way he moves. I'm not telling anyone that anything that they don't know, because he's obviously been thought of as a really good player for the last 2 seasons. But funny because he's coming off a 2-game slump, you could say, where he averaged 12 and 11. And most players, if they average a double-double over 2 games, are like, man, I'm playing pretty good. And while doing that, was shooting 73% from the field. So he had found foul trouble, which had kind of limited his impact in the Illinois and Nebraska games. But he's gotten right back on track. He's going to be the Big Ten Player of the Year. He's going to be the National Player of the Year again, I think it's safe to say. And he has just rolled on. And then my second pick is going to be Jahmir Young. He has had a monster December, was actually 7th in the country in scoring in the month of December. Kind of fought the flu and a sprained ankle after Christmas, which I thought limited maybe his efficiency and his sharpness. But the last 2 games, 28 at Illinois, 36 at Northwestern last night in a really tough loss. But he has just done everything for this Maryland team. They've struggled to win on the road. So for them to go into Champaign and get a win, certainly they wanted to sweep this road trip. The Illinois swing for the Maryland Terrapins. They stayed in Chicago where it is freezing cold. But he's been awesome, and he's just lived at the basket. He's a guy that's going to be first team All Big Ten, and he has certainly played like it for the last month.
All right. I like both of those. For the record, it is freezing everywhere.
That's true.
I cannot, I think this entire Maryland might be the place right now you'd want to go and jump in a pool, because it's just having a heat wave. It's above, 0 degrees. Everywhere else in the Big Ten is absolutely freezing. Megan, who are your 2 picks for this week?
Oh, starting with Bree McDaniel for Maryland, who they just lost to Ohio State, but nonetheless, she has emerged as a really good scorer. Finished with 16 points in that Ohio State game. Her ability to get to the basket is incredible. She is not super tall, but she's so strong and quick, so she can finish with contact and she can finish off balance. But she does a great job, of getting her shoulders square to the basket when she's finishing through contact. So she's really impressive in her sophomore year. Caitlin Clark has been fabulous throughout this season as well. Mackenzie Holmes is a player that has stuck out to me. 32 points in their win over Minnesota, and somebody who has the quickest hips in America when it comes to posting down low on the block. She has every single post move in her bag. She can pass out of double teams. She can hit that short corner jumper. If she can continue playing at a high level, it allows Indiana just to have more balance, because they have so many different 3-point shooters that have time and space to shoot.
I think it goes without saying we would have, both of us would have picked Caitlin Clark, but there is a lot of talent around the league.
We talk about her so much, deservingly so, but there are other players in the Big Ten who deserve shout outs.
I agree. Okay, Robbie, I'm going to test your knowledge of the conference right now. Where is Megan sitting? What arena?
Well, this is cheating because I already asked her. But I think she's in State College. I believe she's at the Bryce Jordan Center.
It's good to know that Robbie does listen when he asks questions, though, because he is correct. As you can see, I will turn you here to the logo on the floor. So
love it.
We are at Penn State, folks.
Megan, I've got a restaurant recommendation for you there, though. If you're looking for somewhere to eat.
Always.
And it comes from my cousin who played football at Penn State, Sam Fick, and he was our kicker like 5 years ago. The Allen Street Grill, really good. So if you're looking for a place,
write that down. I'm hungry and I have some time in between the game and shoot around. So
Allen Street Grill it is.
Allen Street Grill it is. Allen Street Grill. Great, thanks.
Is it acceptable to go to the creamery in the middle of January?
Well,
yeah.
I think you just got to take it to your warm room or your warm car. Just don't eat it outside. But yes, I think it is.
They have a peanut butter banana flavor at the creamery. That is, who does peanut butter banana? Ben & Jerry's says Chunky Monkey, but the creamery does it right.
That sounds, I'm a sucker for a frozen treat. I never had a Carver cone, and I was determined to get one before our Iowa-Wisconsin game the other day. They had raspberry soft serve.
I know.
And I got it with chocolate. I mean, so now that we're on the topic of things that just make us happy and bring us smiles, we're all on the road, right? We've got all these games. We're everywhere. Sometimes we can't even remember what city we're in. What's something that keeps you going? Your guilty pleasure on the road that is away from basketball. What do you do, Robbie?
This is going back to when I played overseas. So this is not just like a recent thing, but before I go to sleep, more often than not, I will throw on an episode of Entourage. I love Entourage.
So good.
And it's
so
because
good.
I've seen every episode like 10 times and I really don't have to listen. I can just kind of like sort of doze off. But I love Entourage and I am doing that most nights.
I love that.
And it's like the greatest character ever.
Yes.
And we're just recycling episodes at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
He's like,
that's
yes.
a good one.
Megan,
so
what about you?
Well, funny enough, Zora Stephenson and I have been traveling together quite often, calling games for Peacock. She recommended to me a show that I just finished season 1 of, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Been all over it. It is addicting. It is a guilty pleasure. I'm a big Vanderpump Rules gal. Love anything on Bravo really at this point. So that's been getting me through these flights and delays and cancellations, is getting to see what Lisa Barlow is going to say on Salt Lake City.
I'm always so embarrassed to say that I love reality television. I love the Housewives series, Potomac, Atlanta. Salt Lake City is rather new. And so I had to put my girl Megan onto it. They're in I'm really catching up on the reunion right now. But I found this is completely different than that. Recently, I found a kids baking show, and it's like it's these 12 and under kids that have a baking competition, and it's so they start crying if the cake comes out too well done or they can't get the oven to work. And so I love like cooking shows, and these poor kids, it's fascinating that they're 9 years old and they can cook way better than me. So that's lately the thing. And then on more like productive terms, I am trying to read more in the new year, new year, new me. And so I've been trying to read. So right now I'm reading Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. And it's fascinating.
Nice.
I've heard it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I've been up to. Next game that you're calling in the Big Ten, Robbie.
Wisconsin, Indiana on Friday. Indiana has not actually won at Wisconsin since 2000. Bobby Knight was the head coach. So big game for them. They need it for their NCAA tournament resume in a building where they have not had much success.
And then who is Penn State taking on, Megan?
Penn State is playing against Purdue. So going to be a fun one. People have seen Purdue on Peacock already against Iowa. So they got a lot of youth. Can they get it to gel with the upperclassmen? We will see.
Okay. And then I've got Iowa and Ohio State on Sunday. We will see. All right, team. It's been great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Go big or go home.